Good afternoon to one and all. So I'm Dr. C.H. Ramakrishna. So today we are going to discuss about disorders of ocular motility. So what are the contents of the classes which we are going to cover? It will take almost 3 to 4 classes to cover the entire topic. So these are the things which we are going to discuss in this succeeding 3 to 4 classes which are going to come this week and if possible next week. So the contents are extraocular muscles and their actions. So what are the various extraocular muscles which govern the movement of the eyeball, and what are the various actions of each and every muscle? We'll be going on in detail. What are the various ocular movements, and what do you mean by binocular single vision? That is, what is the advantage of having two eyes, and what do you mean by amblyopia, and what do you mean by diplopia? So these first 4 topics we'll be covering in today's class, hopefully if time permits. So those things which are marked in red color, that is extraocular muscles and their actions, ocular movements, binocular single vision, amblyopia, and diplopia. So all these are potential 2 marks and 4 marks questions for you. So squint is usually never asked as an essay question, but usually 2 marks and 4 marks will be given from this chapter. And these are marked in the red color, that is amblyopia, diplopia, binocular single vision, what are the various ocular movements, what are the various extraocular muscles, and what are their actions. So all these can be 2 marks or 4 marks for you. So be thorough with them. So in the next classes, we'll be covering about heterophoria, what are the various tests for strabismus, what do you mean by concomitant and concomitant squint, what are the differences between them, and what do you mean by nystagmus. So these things we'll be discussing in the next classes, mostly second or third classes. And in that again, concomitant and concomitant squint will be 4 marks question or 2 marks question for you. Okay. And strabismus is the scientific name for squint. So squint is a general English term, whereas strabismus is a scientific term for squint. So we usually call it as strabismus. Okay. So let's start today's class. So what are the various extraocular muscles? So there are 6 muscles which surround the eyeball. So the eyeball is surrounded by a set of 6 muscles which are known as the extraocular muscles. So what are these muscles? There are 4 recti muscles. So the recti are superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus, and lateral rectus. So recti, actually the word rectus in Greek or Latin, it means that recti means straight. So as the course of this muscle is straight, the superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus, and lateral rectus, these are the muscle fibers are oriented in a straight direction. That's why they are called recti, and they are 4 in number. And the next thing is obliques. They are called obliques because their insertion to the eyeball is in little oblique pattern, which you are going to see in the succeeding slides. So recti means it's straight. They are superior, inferior, medial, and lateral recti muscles, which are straight in their course. Obliques are named so because they run obliquely in their course. So there are 2 oblique muscles. One is the superior oblique and the other is the inferior oblique. So just based on the direction, superior, inferior, medial, and lateral, 4 recti, 2 obliques. Okay, so this is a diagrammatic representation. So you see this first one is a superior rectus muscle. It is labeled. See, it is going in a straight pathway. It is a superior rectus muscle. So the one which is present beneath it, this is the inferior rectus muscle. You can see the labeling also. It is labeled as inferior rectus muscle. Okay, and similarly, here you got the lateral rectus muscle. This side, this is the lateral rectus. Here it is labeled. And this side you got the medial rectus muscle, which is labeled as medial rectus here. Okay, so you can see all these muscle fibers are straight. They're running a straight course. That's why they're called recti. So superior, inferior, medial, and lateral. And after that there are obliques. You see, this is the superior oblique muscle. Superior oblique muscle because it is inserting in an oblique pattern. Hence it is called the superior oblique muscle. As it is present superiorly, it is called superior oblique muscle. And the one that is present inferiorly, it is called inferior oblique muscle. So recti are 4: superior recti, lateral rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus. Obliques are 2. One is superior oblique, the other one is the inferior oblique. So these are the extraocular muscles. Okay, this is under lateral cut section. That was from a top view. So transverse cut section, and this is like a sagittal plane. So a sagittal section if you take. So this is the lateral rectus, this is the superior rectus, and this is the inferior rectus muscle. This is the inferior oblique. You can see it is running in an oblique course, and this is the superior oblique. Okay. And then coming to what are the intraocular muscles. So I have told you there are 6 extraocular muscles. So extraocular, that is, they're present outside the eyeball. So when there are extraocular muscles, definitely a question arises whether there are any intraocular muscles. Intra means inside. So yes, there are a few muscles which are present inside the eyeball. So what are these? One is the sphincter pupillae, which is supplied by parasympathetic part of the third cranial nerve, that is the oculomotor nerve. And the other one is the dilator pupillae, which is supplied by the sympathetic plexus. The other one is the ciliary muscle, which is again supplied by parasympathetic plexus part of the third cranial nerve, oculomotor nerve. And there is a ciliary ganglion, which is present inside the orbit. It is a relay for parasympathetic fibers. So about these intraocular muscles, it will be discussed detailed in the neuro-ophthalmology classes, where you will be having the sphincter pupillae cause constriction of pupil, dilator pupillae cause dilatation of the pupil, ciliary muscle cause accommodation. So about the ciliary ganglion, all these things, you just remember their names for the time being. In the next classes, when I take about neuro-ophthalmology, at that time I'll be telling you what is a sphincter pupillae, what is dilator pupillae, what is the sympathetic, parasympathetic, how they work and all, we'll be seeing in neuro-ophthalmology. So for the time being, there are extraocular muscles, 4 recti and 2 obliques, and there are also intraocular muscles, sphincter pupillae or constrictor pupillae, dilator pupillae, and ciliary muscle. Just remember the names for this class. Okay, and next coming to origins and insertion. So in your anatomy classes, you might have all learned that for any muscle, if you are given a femur bone and you are asked to tell about the origins and insertions of various muscles, let it be the hamstrings or the quadriceps femoris. So you go on telling that this is the origin and that is the insertion. Similarly, for the extraocular muscles also, you have got an origin and you have got a few insertions. So what are the origins of these extraocular muscles? So there is a common annular tendinous ring. So this white color, you can see this white color, this cut part is of the optic nerve stump. So at the center, this is the optic nerve. The cut part is the stump of the optic nerve. Surrounding the optic nerve, so there is a tendinous sheath, a sheath which is made up of a tendon. So this white color thing here you can see. So from this tendon, all the muscles arise. That is, you can see the superior rectus muscle, the lateral rectus muscle, the medial rectus, and inferior rectus. So all the 4 recti muscle, they originate from a common tendinous ring here. So from a common annular tendinous ring, all these 4 recti muscle originate, whereas the origin for oblique muscles is different, which I'll tell you later on in the succeeding slides. So the extraocular muscles originate from a common annular tendinous ring, which is present surrounding the optic nerve. Okay, so for example, you see here all the other muscles I have removed. I have just kept the inferior rectus muscle for your understanding sake. So this round one you see. So this white one is the optic nerve. This is the eyeball. This is the optic nerve. Surrounding this optic nerve, there is a white colored ring. So this is the tendinous ring. From this, on the inferior aspect, the inferior rectus muscle arises. Similarly, from superior part, superior rectus, laterally lateral rectus, and medially medial rectus muscle arises. So all these pictures have been taken from various textbooks and also from Google. So coming to insertion. So that was the common origin for the recti muscles. Origin I have shown you. It is from a common annular tendinous ring which surrounds the optic nerve. Now, few terms from just for refreshing your anatomy knowledge. So what is a tendon? A tendon is nothing but a collection of collagen tissue which attaches a muscle to the bone. So muscles are attached to bone with the help of a thing called tendon, which is a fibrous tissue. A flattened tendon or a tendon which is compressed is known as an aponeurosis. So first of all, what is a tendon? It is made up of a collagen tissue and it attaches muscle to the bone. And a flattened tendon is called aponeurosis. And what is a ligament? A ligament is a thing which attaches the bone to the bone. Okay. So similarly, a tendon is nothing but attachment between a muscle and a bone. And then a flattened tendon is called an aponeurosis. And a ligament attaches a bone to another bone. Okay. So here all the recti muscle, they arise from a tendon. Okay. So tendons connect muscle to the bone. So the bone here is the bones of the orbit. So the bones of the orbit, the greater and lesser wings of the sphenoid, they are attached to the muscle with the help of a tendon, which is in the form of a ring-shaped structure. Okay. So the recti tendon are very broad, 10 millimeter, and they insert into the sclera here. So the insertion of the recti muscles is into the sclera. So now where do they insert? So there are some numerical values which you have to remember, which I'll be showing you in a diagram. Okay. So all these recti muscles insert in front of the equator. So how? So if you see, so origin I have shown you from the orbit surrounding the optic nerve, all the recti muscles originate. And where do they insert? They insert into the sclera. Into the sclera, where do they insert? They insert in front of the equator. Hopefully, if you all might have attended my previous class about sclera. So there I told you the equator of the eyeball. So equator of the eyeball is nothing but the place on the sclera where the vortex veins exist. I told you in my previous sclera class that there are 4 vortex veins which exit from the eyeball and thereby piercing the sclera. So the place where the vortex veins exit the sclera, that part is called the equator of the eyeball. because roughly it is at the junction of the anterior half and posterior half of the eyeball. So exactly in front of the equator, this recti muscle insert. So the recti muscle originates from the bone, from a common annular tendinous ring, and they insert in front of the equator. That is in front way of the emerging place of the vortex veins. So where is the exact location of this insertion? So here you see this is the superior rectus, this is the inferior rectus, and this is the medial rectus, and this is the lateral rectus muscle. So they are all originating from the annular tendinous ring from the orbit, and they're inserting into the sclera in front of the equator of the eyeball. So how much is the distance? So if you see here in this diagram, the medial rectus is inserted at a distance of 5.5 millimeters from the limbus. Usually for any measurements in the eyeball, we take limbus as a landmark. So limbus is the junction between the sclera and the cornea. This transparent part is called the cornea, and this opaque part is called the sclera. The junction of the sclera and cornea is called the limbus. The limbus is always fixed in any eye. So any measurements, we say how much distance it is located from the limbus, 5 millimeters or 6 millimeters or so, because the limbus is a fixed structure. So here if you see, the medial rectus muscle inserts 5.5 millimeters lateral to the limbus at a distance of 5.5 millimeters from the limbus. The inferior rectus inserts at a distance of 6.5 millimeters from the limbus. Similarly, the lateral rectus muscle inserts 6.9 millimeters from the limbus, and the superior rectus inserts 7.7 millimeters from the limbus. So where are the insertions is, medial rectus is 5.5, inferior rectus is 6.5, lateral rectus is 6.9, and superior rectus is 7.7. So all these four values you have to learn by heart because they'll be asking you in your exams. So what is the applied aspect of this? In conjunctiva, all of you might have learned about pterygium. So pterygium is also a short case for your exam. So in pterygium, what happens is, pterygium usually, nasal pterygium is more common than the temporal pterygium, which is because the more amount of UV light is reflected from the nasal bridge onto the medial side, thereby causing more solar damage to the conjunctiva on the medial side, causing degenerative changes. So pterygium is more common on the nasal side because UV rays reflect from the nasal bridge, and the palpebral aperture width is more on the medial side compared to the lateral side. And the tears are secreted from the lacrimal gland on the lateral aspect, and they drain the debris through the nasolacrimal duct, which is present through the medial aspect. So all the debris is pulled up in the medial aspect. That's why nasal pterygium is more common. So the problem here is, the medial rectus is very close to the limbus, only 5.5 millimeters to the limbus. So while dissecting a pterygium, if you go little deep, or if you are not careful while dissecting, there is a problem that you might damage the medial rectus muscle. So medial rectus muscle is susceptible to injury during anterior segment procedures like pterygium excision or any other procedure because it is located very close to the limbus. And one more thing what they ask in your exam is, if when you go for Viva, they give you instruments. So in cataract surgery, already sir might have discussed it with you. The first step is superior rectus muscle bridle suture we apply. So while applying superior rectus muscle bridle suture with the forceps, what you have to do is you have to apply suture to the superior rectus muscle. So what in exam they ask you is, they show you the instrument, superior rectus muscle holding forceps, and they ask you what is the length of the tip of the superior rectus holding forceps. So the length of the tip is roughly 7.7 millimeter, because from that superior rectus muscle forceps is such that one of its curves will be at the limbus, and from there it will be 7.7 millimeter long, so that its tip will exactly catch hold of the superior rectus muscle fibers. So that is an applied aspect of this insertion of this rectus. So first thing is, medial rectus muscle is susceptible to injury because it is very close to the limbus. That is one point, like pterygium surgery or whatever surgery it may be, anterior segment. Second thing is superior rectus muscle holding forceps. So the forceps tip length is approximately 7.7 millimeter. Why? Because it has to hold the superior rectus muscle forceps. So the forceps has got two curves. One curve is placed exactly at the limbus, and from there the tip is 7.7 millimeter long, so that it will exactly hold the superior rectus muscle forceps, and you can easily pass a suture. So that is the applied aspect of this insertion of this recti muscle. And one more thing they'll be asking you is, what is spiral of Tillot's? Spiral line of Tillot's. It is nothing but, if you connect a line joining all the insertion of all these four muscles, you see this black line, it forms a spiral structure. So this is known as a spiral of Tillot's. So when all the insertion of recti muscles are joined by an imaginary line, it forms a spiral structure which is known as spiral of Tillot's. Hope you are all clear with this. So applied aspect is, medial rectus muscle prone to injury, and then superior rectus muscle holding forceps tip length is 7.7 millimeters, and a spiral line of Tillot's, which is formed by the insertions, an imaginary line along the insertions of these four recti muscles. Okay. So, and next coming to insertion of obliques. So here you can see in this lateral aspect or this cut section. So here you can see, if suppose this is the equator part, if you think, suppose this is the equator part of the eyeball, here roughly you think, the lateral rectus muscle is inserting in front of the equator, superior rectus in front, and inferior rectus is also front. And here you see the obliques. The oblique muscles are inserting roughly behind the equator of the eyeball. And they are also inserting in a oblique pattern. Okay, coming to superior oblique. So superior oblique, it originates from a bone above and medial to the optic foramen. So what I told you about the rectus muscle, the recti muscle originates from a common tendinous ring, but the oblique muscles don't take origin from that common tendinous ring. So the oblique muscle originates from the bone, which is present above and medial to the optic foramen. Optic foramen is nothing but a gap between the greater wing and lesser wing of sphenoid through which the optic nerve passes. So the bone above that, that is roughly the greater wing of sphenoid, through that the superior oblique muscle originates. And it runs forward to a pulley-like structure called trochlea, which is considered to be the functional origin that I will show you in the diagram. And it inserts into the upper and outer part of sclera behind the equator of the eyeball. Okay, and if the trochlea is damaged, it is called as brown superior oblique sheath syndrome. So here you see. So this is the common annular tendinous ring or annulus of Zinn where the recti muscle originates. So above this annulus of Zinn, from the bony wall, the superior oblique muscle originates. So superior oblique muscle does not originate from the tendinous ring. It originates from the bone which is present above the ring. So the superior oblique runs forward along the medial wall of the orbit. And here at the medial wall of the orbit, there is a pulley-like structure which is formed by condensation of collagen fibers. So all the collagen fibers, they form a pulley-like structure. Pulley you might have all seen while in the wells and parks and all. So a pulley-like structure is formed, which is called a trochlea. So the superior oblique muscle originates from the bone. They pass forward in front of along the medial wall of the orbit, and they go into this trochlea. From this trochlea, that superior oblique muscle becomes a tendon. Up to here, this is the muscle belly of the superior oblique, and from the trochlea, it forms into a tendon, and the tendon reflects back and it originates onto the sclera behind the equator. Suppose in this part, if you draw the equator, hope my mouse pointer is visible. So in this part, behind the superior rectus muscle, here if you draw an equator, the recti muscle are inserting in front of the equator, whereas the oblique muscles are inserting behind the equator in an oblique fashion. That is for various actions of the muscle. So superior oblique originates from the bony wall, passes through a trochlea, and then it comes here. So as there is a trochlea, almost this is known as the functional origin of the superior oblique muscle. Because any movements of this muscle take place, they are mainly based on this one, because this trochlea acts as a fulcrum. So here only the main direction of action of the muscle changes. Hence this trochlea is known as a functional origin. It is just like any other of your pulley system you use in your wells. Okay. Next, coming to inferior oblique muscle. Inferior oblique muscle originates from the orbital plate of the maxilla. So it originates from the maxillary bone, orbital plate of the maxillary bone, and it inserts into the lower and outer part of the sclera. And it also inserts behind the equator. Inferior oblique also inserts behind the equator. You just remember that the recti muscles insert in front of the equator, whereas the oblique muscles insert behind the equator. Okay, and it inserts into the sclera 1 to 2 millimeter behind the macula and also surrounds the optic nerve. So in neuro-ophthalmology, we'll be discussing a condition known as optic neuritis. So in this optic neuritis, there is one classical symptom the patient says. So whenever there is a patient of optic neuritis, he says that he has a pain on elevation or on movement of the eyeball. So why this happens is, the insertion of this inferior oblique muscle almost surrounds the optic nerve sheath. Okay. So here if you see, the inferior oblique muscle, it originates from the orbital plate of maxilla and inserts into the eyeball near the macula. Okay, in a diagram I'll show you better. So here you see this is the inferior oblique muscle. This almost fans out like this and inserts here in this part, and it goes even behind this muscle. So the macula of the eyeball is located somewhere here, and the optic nerve passes here. So this inferior oblique insertion almost reaches up to the optic nerve. So in optic neuritis, what happens is the optic nerve which is here, its meningeal sheath gets inflamed, and that inflammation also passes through this inferior oblique muscle fibers. So whenever the eyeball is elevated, which is an action of inferior oblique muscle, at that time what happens is the patient complains of pain. So the applied aspect of inferior oblique muscle insertion is the inferior oblique muscle, it inserts near to the macula. So macula, its location you will be taught in the retina classes. So here the macula will be there in this location. The inferior oblique insertion is almost at that part where the macula is located on the retina. Just behind that on the scleral part, this inferior oblique muscle inserts. And the optic nerve also passes to the sclera in that particular part. That's why if there is any optic neuritis and inflammation of the meningeal sheath of the optic nerve, that inflammation spreads to this inferior oblique muscle also. That's why it leads to some pain in elevation. Similarly, the superior rectus muscle. Similarly, the superior rectus muscle and medial rectus muscle insertion is also, these muscle fibers also pass close to the optic nerve, and so they also can be inflamed in case of optic neuritis and then cause little pain. Okay. So this is about inferior oblique muscle. Now, what is the nerve supply of all these muscles? So this one you might have learned in your first year physiology, LR6 SO4 whole thrice. LR is lateral rectus muscle. So the lateral rectus muscle is supplied by the 6th cranial nerve or the abducens nerve. The superior oblique muscle is supplied by the 4th cranial nerve or the trochlear nerve. And the rest of all the extraocular muscles are supplied by the 3rd cranial nerve or the oculomotor nerve. LR6 SO4 whole thrice, lateral rectus by the 6th cranial nerve, superior oblique by the 4th cranial nerve, and all the others, that is except lateral rectus and superior oblique, that is the superior rectus, medial rectus, inferior rectus, and inferior oblique, they are supplied by the 3rd cranial nerve or the oculomotor nerve. This is about the nerve supply of the extraocular muscles. Okay, and in overall, this is a picture of the muscles of the orbit. These are the rectus, superior rectus, lateral rectus, medial rectus, inferior rectus, and here behind this one you can see superior oblique, and this is the inferior oblique muscle. You can see it is going behind and attaching posteriorly behind the eyeball, close to the macula and the optic nerve. So coming to what is the blood supply. So eye is nothing but ophthalmology. You say ophthalmology. So it is supplied by ophthalmic artery. So the ophthalmic artery gives rise to two muscular arteries. One is the medial muscular artery and other is the lateral muscular artery. The medial muscular artery supplies the medial rectus, inferior rectus, and inferior oblique, whereas the lateral muscular artery supplies the lateral rectus, superior oblique, and LPS. This is just for completion's sake. It is not of that much of importance. And just here, the most important thing here is these muscular arteries, which are medial and lateral, they give rise to 7 anterior ciliary arteries. So these anterior ciliary arteries, they can cause anterior segment ischemia during squint surgery. Okay, that one. Okay, so one thing you have to remember here is the ophthalmic artery gives rise to medial and lateral muscular arteries. So the medial and lateral muscular arteries, they further give branches like muscular arteries. So muscular arteries is, there are 7 anterior ciliary arteries. So the 7 anterior ciliary arteries are 1 from the lateral rectus and 2 from the rest of the 4 recti. Totally there are 7 small anterior ciliary arteries which are branches of these muscular arteries. So mainly remember, ophthalmic artery gives rise to medial and lateral muscular arteries, and these muscular arteries further divide and gives rise to anterior ciliary arteries. So these anterior ciliary arteries are 7, which is 1 from lateral rectus and 2 from rest of the 4 recti muscles. So when you are doing any squint surgery on these recti muscle, that is dissection and recession, which we are going to cover in next classes. So when you cut the muscle, along with the muscle, these arteries can also be disrupted. So that can lead to ischemia of the anterior segment, because these muscular arteries are the only source of blood supply to the anterior segment by forming a major iridial circle. So when those muscles are cut during surgery, it will also damage the ciliary arteries. That's why when you do surgery for more than 2 recti muscles at a time, there is a problem that you can get into anterior segment ischemia. Okay, that is one applied aspect. So that was about the various extraocular muscles, origin and insertions, which is an important question for you. And second thing is, what are the various actions of these extraocular muscles? So actions of extraocular muscles is again a 4 marks or a 2 marks question for you. You have to learn it in form of a table. Okay. Before going into action of extraocular muscles, you have to learn few basic topics. So what are these basic topics are? First of all, you have to know what is a visual axis. So when suppose you are looking at an object, your eyes are looking and focusing at a particular object. So the line of sight, the maximum vision, the maximum clarity of vision is present in the fovea centralis or the macula. So the macula lutea or fovea centralis, you might have learned in your first year physiology. It is known as also the yellow spot. So yellow spot or bright spot, that is the place where the maximum visual acuity is present. So whenever you are looking at any object, a line of sight or a ray of light strikes from the object up to your fovea. Only then you will have the maximum visual acuity, and that is called as a visual axis. Okay, and optical axis. Optical axis is when a straight line drawn from an object falls on the retina. It is called optical axis. And where does it fall? It falls exactly a slightly nasal to the fovea. And angle between these two is known as kappa, angle kappa. So positive angle kappa is known as pseudoexotropia, and negative angle kappa is known as pseudoesotropia. This is a little confusing. We'll see in a diagrammatic way what is this, and again we'll come back to this. Okay. So see. So here actually this nomenclature you forget about. Here little wrong nomenclature is given. So basically, suppose there is some object here. Suppose this mouse pointer where it is there. Suppose there is an object. Suppose there is some pen or there is some computer monitor is there here. So you have to see the computer perfectly. So what will happen is a ray of light starts from this object of interest. Suppose there is some pen or pencil here which you are going to looking at. So from this a ray of light comes from this object. It goes and strikes the fovea centralis or the macula lutea, because in our eyeball the fovea is also known as the yellow spot, and that is the part of maximum visual acuity. So the maximum clarity of vision can be obtained only when the vision falls on the fovea. So only when the image of the object falls on the fovea only we will be having the maximum clarity. Anywhere beside on the peripheral or of retina, if it falls, it is little blurred. So in order to see an object clearly, a ray of light should start from the object here and it should come and travel and fall on the fovea. So this part is known as the visual axis. Visual axis because that is concerned with vision. We want maximum clarity of vision. This is the visual axis. And suppose there is some object here. And from that object, we draw a straight line. And that straight line, what happens is it travel straight and falls slightly nasal to the fovea. The fovea is located somewhere here. And suppose here there is an object you think. Suppose this arrow mark is an object. From this arrow mark, if you draw a line, suppose from this bottom part, so that line is going and striking the fovea, it is the visual axis. Suppose from the same object, if you draw a line straight, suppose from this part or this part you draw a line straightly, it will go and fall on a part of the retina which is slightly nasal to the fovea. That is known as the optical axis. Okay, so visual axis is from the object to the fovea, and optical axis is a straight line which falls slightly nasal to the fovea. Okay, and angle between both these is known as angle kappa. So between both of these, it is known as angle kappa. So up to there, you remember it is important for you. And in your textbook, he gives that positive angle kappa is seen in pseudoexotropia. It is a little difficult to understand. Only in clinical postings, I think we can be able to discuss it when we sit in personally only, we can discuss it little. When we sit in face to face, on online it is little difficult. So positive angle kappa is seen in pseudoexotropia. Just remember that in exotropia there is an X. If you tilt that X, you will get a plus. So the angle is positive in pseudoexotropia. So the opposite, negative angle kappa is seen in pseudoesotropia. This one usually for PG entrance bits they might be asking you. So positive angle kappa is seen in pseudoexotropia, pseudoesotropia they'll ask in your exam. So you will tick mark pseudoexotropia. How to remember? Here there is a plus. If you tilt the plus, it will become X. So like that you remember that positive angle kappa is seen in pseudoexotropia, negative angle kappa is seen in pseudoesotropia. How it happens, why it happens, and all it is a little difficult for you at this level. We can discuss it later on. Okay. So basically you have to remember is the visual axis is this one which falls up to the fovea, and the optical axis is this one which falls nasal to the fovea. Angle between the two is angle kappa. Positive angle is seen in pseudoexotropia, exotropia X. If you tilt that X, it will become plus. Negative angle kappa is seen in pseudoesotropia. Up to that much you remember, it is enough, more than enough for you. Rest of all the things are PG topics. Okay. So now with that basic knowledge, now we'll come to what are the various actions of the extraocular muscles. So the actions of the muscles are divided into primary action, secondary action, and tertiary actions. So why this happens, we will see. The lateral recti and medial recti muscle are parallel to the optical axis, and so there is only one action. In diagram, we will see how it happens. The superior and inferior rectus muscles are slightly at a location of 23 degrees to the optical axis. So optical axis, I told you, optical axis is nothing but a straight line which is drawn from the object which falls slightly nasal to the fovea. So this is the optical axis. That point you have to remember. Optical axis is a straight line drawn from the object which falls on the retina slightly nasal to the fovea. That is the optical axis. So the lateral rectus and medial recti are parallel to the optical axis. The superior rectus and inferior rectus are located at a degree such as 23 degrees to the optical axis at an angle. Similarly, the superior and inferior oblique muscles are located at a 51 degrees to the optical axis. Okay. So you remember this mnemonic here, SYN RAD. So SYN, all the superiors are intorters. That is the superior rectus muscle and inferior rectus muscle. These are, and superior oblique muscle and superior rectus muscle are intorters. So you have to remember this mnemonic, SYN RAD. SYN is all superiors are intorters. So superiors, you have two superior muscles. One is the superior rectus, the other one is the superior oblique muscle. So superior rectus and superior oblique muscles are intorters, and all the recti muscles are adductors, ADD adductors. Okay. So superiors are intorters. So obviously inferiors will become extorters. The recti are adductors, so obliques will be abductors. These all are a little bit confusing. You have to read it twice or thrice. Once you will see in diagrammatic way what is all this. So you just remember for the time being, what is optical axis? Line drawn from the object which strikes the retina slightly nasal to the fovea, that is optical axis. Remember that one. You remember that lateral rectus and medial recti are parallel to the optical axis. All the other muscles are not parallel to the optical axis. And SYNRAD mnemonic you remember. Superiors are intorters, recti are adductors. Opposite will apply for the others. So inferiors will become extorters and the obliques will become abductors, abductors. Okay. Okay. So here you see in a diagrammatic pattern if you see. So this is the optical axis. Okay. This is the optical axis we are taking. Okay. So here if you take, you see, so this is the natural position of the eyeball in the orbit. Okay, both the orbits are located at an angle of 90 degrees to each other. The lateral wall to lateral wall, it will be 90 degrees. So here if you see, here you can see this is the optical axis. The straight line is the optical axis. You can see here the lateral rectus and the medial rectus are parallel to the optical axis. So this is the optical axis. Lateral and medial rectus are parallel to the optical axis. So they have only one action. If this lateral rectus contracts, the eyeball will turn towards the lateral side. If this medial rectus will contract, eyeball will turn to the medial side. So anything towards the body, that is called adduction, adduction. So anything goes outside, away from the midline, it is called abduction, abduction. Okay. So the lateral recti, the action is abduction. Medial recti, action is adduction or adduction. Okay. Similarly, here also, if you see, the lateral rectus muscle is almost all parallel to the optical axis. So here also, if you see the lateral rectus muscle, it will only cause adduction, and lateral rectus will cause abduction, and medial rectus will call adduction. So the same applies in this place also. So basically, the medial recti and lateral recti are parallel to the origin of, are parallel to the optical axis, and hence they have only one action. Hence that is a primary action. Medial rectus, it is adduction, adduction, that is towards the equator, towards the midline, and lateral rectus is away from the body, that is abduction or abduction. So that thing you remember. So the lateral recti and medial recti, as they're parallel to the optical axis, they have only one action, that is either abduction or adduction. So that is the first thing. And the second thing you have to remember is, I told you a mnemonic, SYNRAD. So superiors are intorters, recti are adductors. So apply the same thing. So superior rectus. So superior rectus, what it does is, its primary action is elevation. Because superior rectus is present superiorly, primary action is elevation. Inferior rectus is present inferiorly, its primary action is depression. Okay. So superior rectus, it is elevation, and inferior rectus, it is depression. That is the main action. Along with it, what I told you, superiors are intorters. So superior rectus causes intorsion, and inferior rectus causes extorsion. So SYNRAD, in SYNRAD, if you see, all the superiors are intorters. So superior rectus, as it is present superiorly, it causes elevation of the eyeball, and as all the superiors are intorters, it causes intorsion. And along with it, what I told you, RAD, recti are adductors. So superior rectus also causes adduction. So the primary action will be elevation, secondary action will be intorsion, tertiary action will be adduction or adduction. Similarly, the inferior rectus, as it is present inferiorly, it causes depression of the eyeball. And similarly, what I told you, inferiors are extorters, so it causes extortion of the eyeball. Similarly, I told you all recti are adductors, adductors. So as it is a recti, from the formula SYNRAD, that is a mnemonic, RAD, so recti are adductors. So that is how you remember, it is a tertiary action. Okay. Next, coming to the oblique muscles. So what I told you, all the superiors are intorters. So superior, it is an intorsion. So superior oblique muscle causes depression. Why this causes depression, I'll tell you later on. And similarly, all the recti are adductors. So obliques will become abductors or abductors. Similarly, inferior oblique, all inferiors are extorters. So it causes extorsion. Inferior oblique also causes elevation, and inferior oblique also causes abduction, because all obliques are abductors. So simply, if you remember this formula, SYNRAD, superiors are intorters and recti are adductors, you can write it in your exams. If you forget everything, just in exam you remember, medial recti and lateral recti have only one action. That is very easy to remember. Medial recti causes adduction, lateral rectus causes abduction or abduction. So that is very easy to remember. Next thing, you come to rectus. So what I told you, SYNRAD, SYNRAD, all the superiors are intorters. So you write superior rectus intorsion, you write, and as per formula, RAD is adduction. So recti are adductor. Similarly, inferior rectus, it causes all inferiors are extortions and it causes adduction, adduction. So this part you will be clear. Similarly, what we told you, all the obliques will become the opposite, abduction, abduction. All the recti are adductors, so obliques will become abductors, abductors. So superior oblique causes abduction, inferior oblique also causes abduction. Similarly, all the superiors are intortors. So superior oblique causes intorsion, inferior oblique causes extorsion. That is the thing. And I told you all the superior rectus is an elevator and inferior rectus is a depression. So opposite of this one is for the oblique. So superior oblique will become depression and inferior oblique will become elevation. So this is clearly, you have to mug up this one and you have to revise it twice or thrice. So in exam, even if you forget which is primary action, which is secondary action, which is tertiary action also, at least if you remember that SINRAD formula, you'll be able to fill up this entire table. Superiors are intortors and recti are adductors. So based on that, you will get all these four. And for recti, you remember elevation is the primary action. So opposite will come for obliques, intorsion and extorsion. So that is how. So now why it happens actually. Okay. Suppose here you see this is the superior rectus muscle. So see, this is the muscle axis of the muscle. And this is also the optical axis also straight. So here if the superior rectus muscle contracts, what happens is the eyeball turns upwards here. Only turning upward is the only action here. Okay. And when the eyeball is totally rotated inside, when the eyeball is adducted totally, adducted. So if the superior rectus muscle contracts, what it happens? The eyeball rotates. So the rotation movement of the eyeball is known as intorsion or extorsion. So here the eyeball rotates and hence the superior rectus causes intorsion. Okay. And similarly, here when the eyeball is slightly at 23 degrees to the optical axis, if the superior rectus causes, when these fibers contract, it also causes little bit of adduction, adduction, or the muscle eyeball moves little inside. So because of this particular angulation of the insertion, the superior rectus and inferior rectus and superior oblique and inferior oblique have other actions. Because the medial and lateral rectus muscles are parallel to the orbital wall and also parallel to the optical axis, they have only one action. But as the recti and the obliques are inserted at a particular angle, that is some 23 degrees or 51 degrees to the optical axis, they have got other actions. So in this position, the superior rectus muscle is purely an elevator. But in this position, it becomes a purely an intortor. And here you see it becomes an elevator along with an adductor. So that's why we have got primary action, secondary action, and tertiary action. It is all a little confusing. Just you have to go through the diagrams repeatedly. If you forget all this, as it is a little postgraduate topic, just to remember SINRAD. So superiors are intortors, recti are adductors, and your job is done. Okay. So the same story applies for the oblique muscles. So you see this is a superior oblique muscle. It arises from the trochlea. Okay. So superior oblique primary action, what I told you, is intorsion. So superior oblique, superiors are intortors. So if the muscle contracts here, the eyeball rotates here. It causes an extorsion. And see, in this position, if the superior oblique contracts, what happens is the eyeball gets depressed. It turns downwards here if the muscle contracts. So similarly here, if the muscle contracts, what happens is eyeball abducts or it turns outside towards the lateral wall. That's why there are three actions for these oblique muscles. It is because of the insertion. The insertion is not parallel to the optical axis. It is located slightly at an angle. For the obliques, it is roughly 51 to 54 degrees. Depends on different books. And for rectus, it is 23 degrees. That's why they have got more than one action. And if you don't remember all this, just remember SINRAD. Superiors are intortors, recti are adductors. Opposite will hold through. Inferiors will become extorters and obliques will become abductors. So medial and lateral rectus have only one action, either abduction or adduction. So that is how you remember. And now one thing you might have got it out. So here in this table, if we see, here we have given superior rectus muscle is inserting superiorly and it is causing elevation. And superior oblique muscle is also inserting superiorly onto the eyeball, but it is causing depression. So both muscles are attaching superiorly only to the eyeball. But when one is contracting, the eyeball is getting elevated. When the other is contracting, the eyeball is getting depressed. So what might be the reason behind this? So the reason behind this is very simple logic. What I told you is the recti muscle insert in front of the equator of the eyeball. I told you in the beginning itself, there is an equator of the eyeball, that is a junction of the anterior part and posterior part of the eyeball where the vortex veins exit. So in front of the equator, the recti muscles insert, whereas the oblique muscle insert behind the equator. Okay. So suppose I hope if you are able to see here. So this is a pen. Suppose in my hand it is there. So suppose this is a fulcrum. Okay. So this is a pen. I'm holding it here. So this one you suppose think it is the equator. So this is the equator where I'm holding the pen. So what I told you is the recti muscles insert in front of the equator. That is recti muscles insert here. Whereas the oblique muscles insert here behind the equator. So now you imagine if the recti muscle is inserted here and it contracts. So superior rectus is contracting. So what will happen? The eyeball is getting elevated. Okay. So suppose you think this is the eyeball and this fingers where I'm catching it, this is the equator. And you imagine this cap of the pen. So this cap is the cornea, you think, cornea part. So superior rectus muscle inserts in front of the equator. So when the superior rectus muscle contracts, so what is happening is the pen is moving upwards. That means the eyeball is moving upwards. But superior oblique, what happens is it attaches behind the equator. So now if superior oblique contracts, what it is happening, the eyeball is getting depressed. So hope you all are clear. So both superior rectus and superior oblique, both of them attach superior to the eyeball. But when the superior rectus contracts, the eyeball is turning upwards or getting elevated. But when the superior oblique contracts, the eyeball is getting depressed or turning down. So why is it happening? So suppose think that this pen is your eyeball and this part where I'm holding it, this is the equator of the eyeball. So the superior rectus muscle, what I told you is it is attached in front of the equator. So if this is the equator, in front of the equator, the superior rectus muscle is attached, inserting. So when the superior rectus muscle is contracting, what happens? The eyeball is moving upwards or getting elevated. Superior oblique muscle is attached behind the eyeball. So when the superior oblique muscle is contracting, the eyeball is moving downwards. Okay, hope you all are clear. So same law applies for the inferior rectus. The inferior rectus muscle attaches in front of the equator. So when the inferior rectus muscle contracts, eyeball rotates downwards. So inferior oblique muscle is inserted behind the equator. So when the inferior oblique muscle contracts, the eyeball rotates upwards. So that is the reason why both the muscles are inserted in the same location, but the actions differ. That is because the insertion is in front of the equator and this is behind the equator. So the same thing. So if the superior rectus contracts here, the eyeball goes upwards. If the inferior oblique contracts, eyeball also goes upwards. So that is the thing. You remember that pen example. Don't go to the diagram, you will get confused. So just remember that pen example, what I told you. Here it is inserting, it contracts, here it contracts elevation, here it contracts depression. This is superior rectus and this is superior oblique. That thing you remember, it is in. So that is about the extraocular muscles, attachment and insertion. It is a little confusing topic, you have to read it repeatedly. So next, coming to what are the uniocular movements and binocular movements. Up to the movements we'll see and then we'll stop for today because telling more of this is also a little confusing. So what are the uniocular movements and what are the binocular movements? So basically, if you close one eyeball and if you test so while testing ocular movements, you do two things. Okay, thank you. Someone said an excellent explanation. Thank you. Okay, continuing to the class. Okay, so what is a uniocular movement and what is a binocular movement? Okay, suppose while testing the ocular movements, what we have to say is we have to test uniocular and binocular. So you make the patient sit in front of you. So this is an important question which your seniors missed a lot. In the exam, the external was asking what do you mean by how do you test extraocular movements, and no one was able to tell the answer correctly. So remember these uniocular movements, definitely in your practical exams they'll ask you. Without that, they're not going to pass you. Okay, so you have to see uniocular as well as binocular movements. So first thing is, while testing uniocular movements, you close one eye. So, and you put your finger here in front of the eye and you ask the patient to follow your eye. So when you see like this, so you ask the patient to keep his head fixed and only turn the eyeball. Don't ask him to turn the entire head. So don't turn the entire head like this. Ask the patient to sit straight. Let him keep his head straight. Just put the finger here and move the finger and ask him to follow it this side and that side. Okay. So if you go outside, that is called abduction, which is an action of the lateral rectus muscle. And if you come inside, that is medial rectus or adduction. Okay. Similarly, if it is going upwards, it is called supraduction. It is not called elevation. Just to remember, it is called supraduction because uniocular movements are called ductions. If you say elevation in exam, they will ask you because elevation is a binocular movement. So here just it is given wrongly in this diagram. So just to remember, adduction. Adduction is moving inside. Abduction is moving outside. Supraduction or circumduction is moving above. Infraduction or deocircumduction is moving below. Okay, that is the thing. Next, intorsion and extorsion. Encyclotorsion or intorsion is the eyeball rotates inside. So when the eyeball rotates inside, that is called intorsion. And when the eyeball rotates outside, that is called extorsion or excycloduction. So just remember, there are monocular movements and binocular movements. So uniocular movements are either adduction moving inside, or abduction moving outside, supraduction moving above, infraduction coming down. And encycloduction is eyeball rotates inside, excycloduction is eyeball rotates outside. So here you can see abduction, adduction, supraduction, infraduction, and this is excycloduction or extorsion. This is encycloduction or intorsion. So here intorsion or extorsion is the eyeball rotates either inside or outside. So that is the thing about uniocular movements. Okay. What is this? I think it is hanged. Okay. Next one is binocular movements. So when you close one eye and you test only with one eye, that is called uniocular movements. So when you look at both the eyes and ask the patient, suppose you put a finger here and you ask him to look this side, or you ask him to look that side, or you ask him to look upwards, or you ask him to look downward, that is called as binocular movements. So when you close one eye and you test a single eye, that is called uniocular movement. And when you test both eyes together, it is called a binocular movement. So binocular movements are of two types. They are versions and vergences. Okay. So what are these versions? So versions are conjugate, symmetric, synchronous movements of both eyes in the same direction. So what is this? No need to remember such a tough definition. So just you see in this diagram. So this is the primary position when both eyeballs are looking straight. So this is called dextroversion. You all remember dextro is right side. So when both the eyeballs are looking towards the right side, it is called dextroversion. Levo means left. So when both the eyeballs are looking towards the left, it is called levoversion. Okay. When both the eyeballs are looking upwards, it is called elevation. That's why I told you in uniocular movements, don't say the term elevation. In uniocular movements, always say duction. Okay, supraduction or infraduction is uniocular movements. So when you say elevation, it means both the eyeballs are looking straight upwards. So this is elevation. Both the eyes are looking down, it is called depression. Both eyes are looking right side and up, it is known as dextro elevation. So right side and up, it is called dextro plus elevation, that is dextro elevation. Left and up, that is levo plus elevation is levo elevation. Similarly, right side down, dextro plus depression is dextro depression, straight down is depression, left side down is levo depression. Okay. So basically, they are conjugate. Conjugate, that means both eyes they occur at a time. They are not disjugate. That is, both eyes move in the same direction, either towards the right or towards the left or towards the up or towards the down. So both eyes are moving conjugately, and both eyes are moving symmetrically. So one eye, suppose it is rotating by 5 degrees, the other eye will also rotate by 5 degrees. So if there is any imbalance between that, then it is called squint. So that is why you should know about this extraocular movements. So exversions are binocular movements. They're conjugate. Conjugate means both eyeballs rotate towards the same direction. Either both will be looking right, or both will be looking left, or both will be looking up, or both will be looking down. So that is conjugate. And they're symmetric. Suppose the right eye moves by 5 degrees, the left eye will also move by 5 degrees. If there is any imbalance or mismatch between them, then we call it as a squint. And they're synchronous. They move simultaneously. So one eye moves towards the right, immediately the other eye also moves. It is not like that one eye will move right and after 1 hour the left eye will move. So in that case, the purpose of vision is lost. So as soon as one eye moves, immediately the other eye follows. So they're synchronous movements which are symmetric and they're also conjugate. And so what are the various versions? Dextroversion, both eyes looking towards the right. Levoversion, both eyes looking towards the left. Supraversion or sursumversion, both eyes looking up, or elevation simply. Infraversion is also known as depression. Dextro elevation is right and up. Levo elevation is left and up. Dextro depression right and down, and levo depression is left and down. Now we have got two more entities: dextrocycloversion or levocycloversion. I told you intorsion and extorsion. So if that one towards the right side, if both the eyeballs rotate, that is called dextrocycloversion. And if both the eyeballs rotate towards the left side, that is called levocycloversion. So these are the various binocular movements, versions part. Okay, dextrocycloversion and levocycloversions. In practical exam, they'll be asking you. Next, what is vergences? So vergences means disjugate. I told you conjugate. Conjugate means both eyes are moving towards the same direction. That is, right eye moves towards the right side, left eye will also move towards the right side. Similarly, up eyeball, one right eye moves up, left eye also moves up. That is conjugate movement. That is, both eyes are moving in the same direction. Conjugate is both eyes moving in the same direction, either to the right, either to the left, either up or either down. In disjugate is one eye moves in one direction, the other eye moves in the opposite direction. So suppose you are seeing at a far object and suddenly you are going to look at your finger, a near object. What happens is both the eyeballs have to converge. So that is a disjugate movement, because the right eye is moving towards the left, or right eye is turning inside, left eye is also turning inside. That is, both are moving in opposite directions. So the right eye is also moving inward, left eye is also moving inwards. That's why it is called a disjugate movement. Disjugate because both eyes are moving in the opposite directions. And it is again symmetric. If this right eye rotates by 5 degrees, this will also rotate by 5 degrees. They are synchronous. Both occur at the same time. It is not that one eyeball will rotate first and next other eyeball. So in opposite directions, if they move, then they are called vergences. So what are the vergences? Convergence. Convergence is when you look at a near object, both eyeballs will converge. And when you look at a far object, both eyeballs will look divergence. And vertical vergences are very rare. One eye looking up, one eye looking down. They're usually very rare, but usually they're seen in case of squint. Suppose there is a weakness of superior rectus muscle or superior oblique muscle. There is some paralysis of the superior rectus. Then the eyeball may rotate up or rotate down depending on the muscle balance. Okay. So positive vertical vergence. Here we just say is positive vertical vergence is right eye rotates upwards. Negative vertical vergence is left eye rotates upwards. So if right eye is up and left eye is down, it is called positive. If left eye is up and right eye is down, it is known as negative. It is seen in vertical heterophoreas, that is in vertical squint, superior recti or superior oblique or inferior rectus and inferior oblique. If there is any paralysis in that or muscular imbalance, then we get. Similarly, in cyclovergence and cyclovergence, it is seen in cyclophoria, but these are very rare. Vertical vergences you can see at least in vertical muscle palsies, but cyclovergences are usually very rare. In cyclovergence, both eyeballs rotating inside, both rotating outside. It is little rare. Okay. So here, diagrammatic representation, convergence, both eyes looking inside, divergence, both up. This is positive vertical vergence. Always in squint, you remember, right eye is given priority over the left eye. If right eye is up, we say R by L. So if right eye is up, we say positive vertical vergence. So if left eye is up, we say negative vertical vergence. Similarly, this is encyclovergence, both eyes rotating inside, and excyclovergence, both eyes rotating outside. Okay. How much is the time? It is 1, 2. I think there are more number of slides, but it will be difficult for you to. I think better next class we will see, because if I tell you all these things, it will be difficult. We'll see about the types of muscle, synergist, antagonist, and all. We'll see. So basically, to sum up, in this class, what all we have seen is we have seen what are the various types of extraocular muscles. So once we'll go through a quick recap, or else it is difficult for you also. So basically, we started here. We have learned about the extraocular muscles. What are the muscles? What are their actions? What are the ocular movements? Only these two parts we're able to cover today. This binocular single vision and amblyopia we'll see in next class. We'll mention if possible, we'll take one more class also. So extraocular muscles, what are they? 6 in number. So this is the diagram. You have seen there are 4 recti, 2 obliques. Intraocular muscles are also there. Sphincter pupillae, dilator pupillae, ciliary muscle. About that we'll be learning in neuro-ophthalmology. So origin by common tendinous ring. Insertion into the sclera. So where do they insert? The spiral of Tilloch's I told you. Spiral of Tilloch's. And anterior segment surgery, you can injure the muscle here. And superior rectus muscle holding forceps, 7.7 millimeters, its tip length. And this one, superior oblique has got a pulley. This is called a trochlear, which is the functional origin. That is about, and narrow supply, LR6 SO4 whole trace. This you all have to remember. Similarly, blood supply, muscular arteries. So if you do squint muscle surgery for more than 2 recti muscle, if you do surgery, it will cause anterior segment ischemia. That is one thing you have to remember here. So what are the various actions? You remember about this optical axis mainly. From object, straightly it hits to the nasal to the fovea it goes. That is the optical axis. So what are the primary actions, secondary actions, and tertiary actions? I told you because the lateral rectus and medial rectus are parallel to the optical axis, they have only one action. All the other muscles are inserted at an angle. That's why they have a different action. You remember, if you can't remember all this, just remember SYNRAD. Superiors are intorters, recti are adductors. Opposite will apply for inferiors and abductors. That much you can write in exam. So this table, based on that, you can follow medial rectus adduction, lateral rectus abduction, superior rectus elevation, and I told you superiors are intorters. So it is intorter and recti are adductors. Based on that, you will fill this entire table in your exam. And actions of extraocular muscle. Based on this, I told you why the superior and inferior vertical muscles have got extra action. Because in this direction, it will act straight and cause only elevation. Here it will cause intorsion. Here it will cause some amount of adduction. Because of the specific angle of insertion, the superior obliques and recti, superior and inferior recti have got other actions also. Here also you see. Here it causes pure intorsion. Here it causes abduction. Here it causes pure depression. So these are the things why they cause. So why? Because I told you insert behind the equator, in front of the equator. I told you the example of the pen. In front of the pen, if they attach, so they cause here they cause elevation and here they cause depression. So that is here. And what are the various movements? Uniocular movements: adduction, adduction, AB, superadduction, infraadduction, encycloadduction, excycloadduction. Binocular movements are versions. Versions is here you can see both in same direction: dextro, levo, dextro elevation, dextro levo elevation, elevation, depression, and all this. And in similarly, encyclotorsion, dextrocycloversion, levocycloversion, and vergences. Vergences, I told you, convergence, divergence, positive and negative vertical vergence, encyclovergence, excyclovergence. So we'll close it today, and the types of muscles in binocular single vision we'll take in the next class. So squint is all a little confusing. That much of details are also not required for you. Mainly it is a postgraduate topic. But still, these are the basic things. Actions of extraocular muscles is very important, which you have to remember. And the extraocular movements, the last two in your final exam viva. So both those things you'll be thorough by today. And if you're thorough with that only, we can go to the next class. Okay. Any doubts you have? Any doubts if you have? Any doubts you have, you can message. If no doubts, we'll close it today. You might also be tired. Okay. Hope you all understood very well. Because it's the last hour, you might have been already stressed with those previous classes also. So difficult to understand all these concepts again. Other concepts we'll see in the next classes. Anyone else? Any more doubts? Or nothing? Okay. Hopefully there are no more doubts. Okay. We'll call it a day. Next class we'll see. Okay. Thank you all for your patient listening.